Welcome to the Innovation World Young Collaborator Podcast Series. I'm thrilled to bring you another insightful conversation where we dive into innovation, collaboration, and ideas shaping the world. I'm Aparajita, a high school junior passionate about technology, education, and creating meaningful connections with inspiring individuals. I enjoy exploring how young people can contribute, building a brighter future by learning from trailblazers across industries. So, in today's episode, it's called Conversation with Girish from Gen X Education. I've been eager to speak with our guest because of his incredible contributions to global education and the innovative ways he's been empowering students through technology. So, I wanted to feature Girish because his journey as founder and CEO of Gen X Education exemplifies the intersection of education and technology. So, his latest initiative, College Genie, it basically revolutionizes how students navigate college admissions. As someone who values mentorship and innovation, I knew his insights would inspire listeners like me who are exploring their path. So it's my honor to introduce Girish, a visionary in education technology. As the founder and CEO of Gen X Education, he has dedicated his career to bridging gaps in global education. From leading impactful initiatives like College Genie to inspiring young minds worldwide. So his work is a testament to the power of innovation in education. Welcome to the podcast, Girish.
Thank you, Prajita.
So I will be asking you some questions based on College Genie and how your experience has been overall.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you for having me. This is really exciting, and I'm glad that we're able to chat a little bit more about the work that we're doing around the world.
Okay. So to start with, I would really love to know what inspired you to create College Genie and how does it stand out from other AI-powered college guidance platforms?
Sure, yeah, thank you. College Genie is really a product of the intersection of technology and necessity. What I mean by that is, over the years, we've spent a lot of time around the world talking to students around high schools. And one of the things that I've always found missing is the ability to keep these students engaged and provide them with the guidance that they need, starting from an early age as they explore their own interests, their talents, and how that relates to the world of work, which then dictates what kind of degrees they study and where they study. And as you're probably aware, millions of kids around the world don't really get that guidance on a day-to-day basis at a school. A lot of schools around the world still do not have a college or a guidance counselor. So I would always leave my visits at these schools after spending an hour or two with students and their thousand questions and walking away knowing that I may never come back to that school or I may never have that opportunity to visit with those students, answer those questions that they have or guide them along the way because time is limited and we can only be in so many places. And I remember always wishing that I could clone myself, that I could be in many places at the same time. Obviously it's not possible. So when AI became a reality, realizing the power of AI and leveraging AI to build the world's first college and career counselor, which is College Genie, was really a labor of love for me personally. And to your question about how is it any different than other tools out there, like other AI-powered tools, we are built on an LLM. But what's unique about College Genie is it has been built with some guardrails, and it's been built with the idea of college counseling from a very ethical, philosophical, even psychological resources built into it. So when a student interacts with College Genie from the beginning, from I don't know what I want to do with my life to very specific questions about I want to study X, Y, and Z in this country, College Genie has been trained and it continues to be trained on and the approach as a true college career counselor would do. So you compare that to other tools that are out there. You take ChatGPT, for example, you can go ask ChatGPT or other LLMs some random question about colleges or degrees, et cetera, and it'll provide you with an answer. Or you can go find tools out there that can help you maybe write your college entrance exams better or maybe prepare for a test better. But I haven't seen one as comprehensive as College Genie, which is truly, like I said, a career and college guidance counselor in the shape of an AI powered tool. And then the beauty of it is College Genie is always happy, always in a good mood, and always there to help, and can answer the same question 1,000 times and can answer the same questions to millions of users at the same time. So this is, in my opinion, probably one of the biggest ways that we're trying to transform students preparing for college and career.
That's great. Honestly, I think I also used College Genie like 3 months ago for my own questions. So it was like really helpful for the AP progress and everything. So
Uh,
I really agree with you. It's like really helpful.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad it was helpful.
Yeah. So moving on to another question. So how does College Genie actually personalize its guidance for students with diverse needs and backgrounds?
Yeah, again, going back to the power of AI and having built College Genie with all the resources it needs to be knowledgeable about the world of college degrees, programs, requirements, scholarships, et cetera, et cetera. And in terms of how those experiences and those degrees relate to the world of work, regardless of where the student's coming from, regardless of what language they want to use College Genie, and regardless of where they are in their journey, College Genie picks up the conversation where the student is, meets the student at their level, and has a conversation with them. This isn't just a question answer tool. This, like I said, is a very conversational, engaging platform so that as and when the student is engaging, or in this case, it can even be parents or counselors or other constituents out there, as they're
Right.
engaging College Genie, it recognizes where that person's coming from, matches conversationally where that user is, and then engages them and not just provide answers, but prompts them with questions and thoughts to keep the conversation alive. Which, if you look at a typical human conversation, that's how a human conversation would work. You don't just ask a question, get an answer, and walk away. So there's follow-up questions that are asked and engaging conversation that happens. And that's the form that we built College Genie. And really to basically say, replicate how a college counselor would have a conversation with a student or a parent.
I see. So is there a way that you have worked towards, you know, preventing it giving a biased response, unbiased or,
Yeah, again, it goes back to training, right? When we train the model, not only do we train the model on all of the resources it needs to have, information on, but also built it in such a way, like I said earlier, put some guardrails around it. We made sure that it was unbiased. We made sure that was, um, global in nature, so it doesn't specify or doesn't quote unquote push a particular university or a program per se. It really is an unbiased, ethical, transparent system that is designed to help the student with whatever their needs are. So there's a lot of guardrails that we put around it. So if you have a conversation with it, if you were to steer away into some unsavory conversations, College Genie will not engage you as what another large language model would maybe answer those questions. College Genie won't. It'll try to bring you back and focus you back into the conversation that has to do everything about college and career. And so that's one way we want to make sure that when users are using, and we recognize that users are younger, we're seeing students as young as 13, 14 years old using it. And we want them to use it because that's where the process starts in exploring their future. And we want to make sure that it is, is safe, right? And it's providing reasonable information in a very friendly way, matching the student's needs. So that's one of the things we're really proud of.
I see. So, That's really great. I really like how you work towards, making it really unbiased and it doesn't, flip the topic, which sometimes happens with ChatGPT. So that's like a really big thing that stands out for College Genie. Another thing that I would like to ask you about Gen X especially, what kind of strategies does Gen X employ to make global education more accessible for students worldwide?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. I mean, we're a mission-driven organization, right? I founded Gen X primarily for a couple of reasons. One, as an international student myself, have been
Mm-hmm.
through the journey, so I know what it takes for a student to leave their comfort and family and move to a different country and go through that journey for all the obvious reasons for opportunities, et cetera. And then on top of that, I've also over the years seen the challenges that international students are facing, not just from an opportunity standpoint, but also navigating the journeys once they make the journey to the destination country or the city or university. So our focus is very simple, really. Our mission is how do we drive access to global education? And that's pretty broad to say that, but our work has always been collaborative, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
On one hand, we work with universities around the world, making sure that those universities who we think are equipped to and are prepared to provide an exceptional experience for international students, those are the ones we work with. And we help them make sure that their programs and their opportunities are visible. We help them expand their reach and impact around the world through all of our networks of schools and counselors and students. And on the flip side, when we're interacting with counselors, we're trying to make sure that they have the necessary resources and professional development and training to be better at their jobs, to be a good counselor. And at the end of the day, it's all about the students, right? Our focus is at the end of the day, the student. So when we work with students, on one hand, making sure that we're exposing the student to all the opportunities that are out there, that we're guiding the students and how to make certain decisions and how to explore and how to discover their own talents and their passions and their interests. And these used to, like I said, happen in a lot of one-on-one personal, in-person engagement. But now with College Genie, we're able to do that across the world in a massive way. Once that's all done, providing the support that the students need so that they can pursue the right opportunity and the right fit university as we describe it. And our commitment has always been when we're working with high schools or students around the world or parents around the world, everything that we do to provide that access and encourage and opportunities and whatever it is that we're doing with the students, we do it free of cost. And why is that important? It's because we don't want to put any additional barriers for a student or a family or even a school to access the resources and the information and the knowledge and the opportunity. On the flip side, we're also very focused on, like I said, working with universities that are fully equipped and prepared to host those students. But again, we're very particular about how we work with these universities. We don't work with them on a commission basis where we're charging a per capita fee, which would basically then maybe drive us to pushing students to a certain university. We don't want to be doing that because we want to be unbiased. So when we work with universities, it's all about providing them with the strategic and tactical expertise. And for those, we charge a fee because we are a service provider and we are providing a service to these universities. And that's what helps us drive the organization. So, given that we're mission driven and given that we have this philosophy of how we work with students and counselors and universities, over the years, we've just always driven that access to global educational opportunities in a very ethical way, very transparent way with a lot of integrity. And again, it's something else that we're really, really proud of. And I can honestly say, over the last 15 years of doing this, hundreds of thousands of students that we've been able to engage and provide that information and that guidance to, thousands of students that we've one-on-one helped access the right opportunity for them around the world, whether it is the right university or whether it's the right scholarship program. And so that's what really keeps us going as a company, and that's something that we're really, really excited to do.
So for me, the best thing that stands out about College Genie is like it's, free of cost and people with any, income bracket can have access to the resources like you said earlier. It's pretty inclusive and that's really good.
Yeah, thank you.
And
And again, that goes back to our commitment to make sure that we're not adding any extra hurdles or barriers to students and families to access the resources they need to access, right? So we don't want it to be a story of haves and have-nots. We want it to be, I know it's a cliche, but we really wanted to democratize it.
yeah. So on top of that, what actually motivated you to go out into the education and technology space, and how has your journey with that been so far?
Yeah, a great question. I mean, like I said earlier, really my motivation to start Gen Next was to find better ways to advance global education and advance students' opportunities. And that's kind of what drove me to start Gen Next. And like I said earlier, since I am an international student myself, I have been fortunate enough to have that opportunity and that experience. And looking back at my own career, without that experience, I definitely would not be where I am today, professionally speaking. In terms of the technology piece of it, it's just really an evolution of Gen Next as a company. Back in the day, as with everything else in life, right? Technology is playing a much more important role in everything that we do. I remember going to college before Google, right? So there was no Google or Skype or any of these tools. And now
Right.
it's a day-to-day thing. I don't think I can live without. I mean, we're on Zoom right now. We couldn't have done this 30 years ago when I was a college student. So, given that the world of technology is impacting us and it's become much more of an integral part of our day-to-day life, it only made sense for me and for us as a company to incorporate technology into the work we're doing. Again, everything's mission driven. How do we enhance access to global education? So, one-on-one, in person, visiting a school, visiting a city, it's time consuming and it's limiting. Right? There's only finite number of hours in a day, a number of days in a week, etc.
Yeah.
So we can't be everywhere. So as we evolved and grew as a company, and particularly, especially through the pandemic, when we couldn't even do that, we couldn't even be on the ground in a city in India or in Africa or the Middle East. And that's when we decided to really take the leap from a technological standpoint to create technology-driven tools to help us accomplish what we wanted to do. And naturally, organically, as new technologies emerged, we're always at the forefront of it. I'm a little bit of a geek myself. So when AI became a thing of, for everybody, to access for everybody, we decided that we're going to leverage that as well. So going from a company that we started where we were working very much in person on the ground, and then leveraging technology slowly through virtual or digital platforms and all the way to now developing and deploying AI-powered tools is our way of saying, hey, we're with the times and we need to make sure we're leveraging everything that's available out there to drive our mission. And at the same time, you know this more than I do, students are increasingly digital natives. They're more, in digital platforms and virtual platforms. So if we need to meet them and engage them, we need to be there as well. So it was just a very natural progression for us and a very organic growth for us to go from, just being an education company to really be not really an ed tech company. I actually have coined a new category for us as an ed intelligence company. So it's not necessarily just ed technology, but it more is ed intelligence leveraging AI. So that's kind of what we call ourselves right now.
I see. And On top of that, has there been any defining moment in your career or in your journey, that influenced you for the direction of Gen X education? Excluding the part that you were yourself an international student and would also want to help others like you. But was there any specific moment which led you to do this?
That's a great question. Maybe I could think of maybe two or three different occasions that stand out. Obviously, the first one was the reason behind which I started Gen Next. It was really very happenstance. I was in corporate America doing something
Mhm.
completely different. And even though my graduate degree is in higher education administration, I'd kind of gone away from that and more into the corporate world. Um, I remember late 2009, I met some Indian graduate students here in town who seemed a little out of sorts and had were facing some challenges as a combination of some promises they came with and then realizing those promises were not really true, and that the institution they were attending was really not prepared to, or not really committed to delivering on those promises, leaving them in a little bit of a crisis mode. So that's what made me start Gen Next, saying, well, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a more ethical, transparent, way of helping students accomplish what they want to do. And then the other one, I alluded to it a little bit ago, was the pandemic, right? So we had over the years built a solid a company with a model in what we were doing. And we were very active in India and the Middle East. And those are the two regions that we were doing a lot. And like all of us, right, just overnight, our mobility was thwarted. We couldn't go anywhere. We couldn't be in these locations like we used to travel to before. So, come March, April of 2020, we were faced with a another crisis as a company, as our own existence in terms of our model. And so when you're faced with a crisis, obviously you think a little bit critically and come out with creative solutions. And that's the journey we went through again in mid 2020 to say, okay, if this pandemic, which we didn't couldn't predict how long it was going to be and how long we were going to be stuck at home, not being able to do the work that we were doing prior to that, is what led us to really think about developing and deploying our first virtual platform, ConnectEd, which really kind of opened up the doors. So, interestingly enough, like I said, prior to the pandemic, we were very active in India and the Middle East, and that was our region. We mostly work with American universities because that was our expertise. Because of the pandemic, because we went digital and virtual with our first platform in late 2020, early 21, we realized that borders were no longer an issue, right? You could be virtually, digitally anywhere, everywhere, all day long.
Right.
And surprisingly, very surprisingly to me, by mid 2021, just 6, 7 months into launching our virtual platform, we were seeing users, students and parents and counselors from 175 countries around the world, places that I've still not visited, obviously. And so that was just absolutely amazing and, so satisfying to see that the work we were doing was now reaching more students, more corners of the world. So as we came out of the pandemic in 2023, or late 22 rather, we started to leverage those relationships we had built through our virtual digital networks and started to incorporate them into more of the work we were doing. So as a result, now it's late 24, almost 25, we are much more active globally, both virtually and in person. We have now developed and launched AI-powered tools like College Genie that's reaching even more students and counselors. So it goes to show that you, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, you may have a strategy, you may have a plan in place, but when the unthinkable happens, in our case, it was the pandemic, which literally scared us for a second as to how we would sustain the business. thinking critically and coming out with creative solutions like we did helped us pivot a little bit and then leverage everything that was at our disposal at that point. And now, just 2 years after the pandemic ended, we're much more global than we ever were. I mean, we're working with more global universities, which means we're supporting a broader university ecosystem, which, in my opinion, helps us expand the reach and expand opportunities for students because not everybody wants to come to the US, not everybody can come to the US. So now we're talking about institutions in Europe and in South Africa, in Asia. And so those are the kinds of things that really kind of makes you want to get up every day and be an entrepreneur and say, all right, challenges are every day. How do we resolve that? And how do we keep moving? And how do we innovate? The innovation is key at GenX for us. And so I'm really excited where we are as a company now and the journey we've had, and really excited to where we're going to go in the next 15 years.
So honestly, College Genie reaching more than 100 countries is like really impressive. And, I was really amazed when you had come to my school since, it's situated in a, really small city. So I was thinking, what's up with all this? Like, I was actually interested in listening to you because you were, talking about colleges and the whole process. And honestly, that's not talked about a lot in schools like mine because everyone's like, we'll think about it later. It's a process which has to be done after high school. So it was pretty engaging and I'm pretty grateful I got to know about College Genie since it's such a, helpful resource. So yeah.
Thank you. No, that was a great visit. I mean, like you saw, my focus when I visit schools is not just to talk about a degree or a college, right? I mean, that's
Mhm.
everyone's talking about it. I think what students really need to understand, and this is the message I was sharing at your school as well, is that students, especially now more so than ever, need to take risks more often, need to explore the opportunity
Yeah.
there. Technology is changing the way we live. Traditional education systems are changing. Traditional degrees and career paths are changing. Traditional careers are not going to be around as much given the way technology. And so, for students to focus a little bit more on developing a skill set, developing some AI expertise, and like I said, exploring and taking risks, that's where I think students need to be spending a lot of time on as they enter high school. Yeah, classes are important, grades are important, exams, and all of those things are important. But given the world that we live in and given the changes that we're seeing in the world, I believe that students who focus a little bit more on developing some strong, power skills, as I call them, along with some AI skills, are going to be
Mhm.
most well prepared for the future and to be able to navigate whatever comes their way. Because, like I said, traditional is out, non-traditional is in. And so I think we need to focus more of our energies at the schools to encourage students and prepare them in such a way that they're future ready, as opposed to focus very much in a myopic way on just an engineering degree or a business degree or a medical degree, which seems to be the case in most of the schools I visit. So yeah, I really appreciated that opportunity to be at the school, and I hope some of the things I shared resonated with you and your peers.
Yeah, honestly, it actually did. You were all about, you discover yourself, what you were into. And first of all, you were like I pursued pharmaceuticals first, and then I went to I think business, then I went to education field. So there were many ups and downs in your career. There were many, differences, but you still made it. You're doing something which you're really into, and I think I would, I was really inspired by your sentences because you were like, oh, your parents don't want you to do this. You should convince them by saying this or doing this. So, yeah.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm glad that was helpful.
So on top of that, for the young innovators looking to make an impact in education or technology, what's the most important piece of advice you would like to give them?
Oh, that's a brilliant question. Like I've always said, I think students need to spend a little bit of time discovering themselves, right? Discovering what their talents are, and then trying to understand how their talent, which by that I mean what they're good at and what makes them happy when they're doing it, how that talent relates to the world of work and how they can apply that talent to whatever area of work, whatever industry that they're going to. And once you do that, and if you do that, I think your impact on the world will be greater, which obviously will bring you a lot more satisfaction, a lot more happiness, and that will relate to success, right? I think students, for not their own fault, but because of the way they're guided sometimes and the influences they have in their lives, are so focused on a career or a degree because of what that may mean in terms of an opportunity, as opposed to focusing a little bit more on what am I good at and what is that talent and that interest that I have that I can really get better at and really hone. And then what are some of these other skills that I need to develop so that the combination of that talent and that skill set, I can then take that skill that I have and apply it regardless of which industry you're in and which form of work that you do. I think that's where students need to be, and that's what I keep telling students all the time. And I would repeat that and reiterate that every single opportunity I have. So that's what I would say here.
Great. Another thing, what's the valuable lessons that you have learned about perseverance and your own vision while building College Genie and Gen X education?
Oh, that's another great question, Aparajita. Um, you know, one thing that I have really learned that things never go as planned.
That's right.
You're gonna have great days, you're gonna have bad days. So I think it's about keeping everything in perspective and
Mm-hmm.
achieving a sense of balance. Maybe I'm a bit more stoic about that. If you don't let too many of the external things, external, whether it's people or circumstances or things that happen, impact
Mm-hmm.
you too positively or too negatively, if you can find that nice balance and then constantly focus inward and know that you are doing this because you believe in yourself, you have the confidence in yourself, you have the skills to do it, and that you're working hard to achieve those goals. Nothing else should matter. Nothing else should matter, and nothing else will matter. So that's one of the things that I mean, over the years, I've learned this sometimes the hard way. There are days, even now, when I wake up and maybe some of the things that I'm planning for isn't going the way it is. I don't let that bring me down too much. Or days that I wake up and there's like a huge success story at work. I take that with a grain of salt also because that's also momentary, right? You just got to keep going through and
Right.
balance that, and making sure that you find yourself people who are positive, who are supportive, but we're
Mm-hmm.
also honest with you. You don't want just yes men or yes women, right? You also want people who are willing to provide their honest feedback and insight. So if you can build a community around you, if you can kind of make sure that you are always like, you're mentally healthy, recognize your own strengths, recognize your own weaknesses, and don't let too many things bother you on a day-to-day basis, I think that's a good recipe for success in the long run. And that really drives, when you talk about perseverance, why does somebody persevere? They only persevere because they believe in themselves. They know they can do it, regardless of how much failure they face. And so to me, perseverance is something that people see you do, but if you don't have that internal belief, you can't persevere. And so, I mean, I know this may seem, like I said, very philosophical to a 16 or 17-year-old. But I wish somebody had told me that when I was 16 or 17. So I'm sharing that. It all works out at the end. As long as you're waking up every morning and doing something that's meaningful impactful, satisfying, and feed your soul. I think that's all there is. Don't chase money or success. Chase your talent and your interest, and the money and success will follow.
Yeah, so I remember that's the exact same thing you said at my school. You were like, what's the worst things that's gonna happen to you? You're just gonna die and that's all. Then it's
You're
finished.
right. I
You
mean,
were
when you
like,
put that in perspective, I mean, what's the worst thing that can happen? You're dead. When
yeah,
you have
that's the
nothing to
worst
worry
thing.
about. So as long as you're not dead, there's another day, there's another dollar. So keep going, keep on keeping on is what I say.
Yeah. So moving on to the last question for this interview. How have hands-on experience like internships and international collaborations influenced your career and your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, I know that's another good question too, and this is something that we are trying to create more opportunities for.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is, for example, I came to study in the U.S., and as a student here, I had many opportunities for part-time jobs and for research assistantships and whatnot. I did both, work. I worked in a cafeteria. I drove a cab. I worked at the student union. And I also did some research as a pharmacy student. So on one hand, some of those other jobs just kind of taught me work ethic, showing up to work even when I hated it, because it's a livelihood. On the other hand, some of the work that I did in research kind of guided me away, to be honest, from pharmacy and research because I realized that was not for me. That wasn't the lifestyle that I would be happy with sitting in a lab all day. So it's not just about getting an experience to discover what you want to do. And a lot of times it's about discovering what you don't want to do or what you don't like. So a combination of that, and along with that, any opportunity that I've had to work has really kind of given me the experiences I've needed to then when I became an entrepreneur and applying some of the learnings that I learned in all of my jobs and my internships, etc. The advice I give to students is twofold. One, no job is small, right? Yes, granted,
Right.
I hated it when I was doing dishes at a cafeteria every morning as an 18-year-old kid. But it really taught me. It taught me, like I said, showing up to work, dedication,
Mm-hmm.
hard work, all of that, right? And along those lines, all the jobs I've had. So the one advice I give students is no job is too beneath you. Like do it. If you get an opportunity, do it. You'll never know what you glean from it, what you learn from it. And then the second thing is when you're doing a job, give it your all. And I look back at my career and every job I had, yeah, there were some days where I'm like, man, what am I doing this for? But 99% of the time, I remember getting up every morning going, I'm going to go do this job to the fullest extent possible, to the best possible, to my best ability. And that gives you the positive approach to work and accomplishments and all of that. And I've seen that really benefit me in my career growth, where I also, on the flip side, see a lot of people waking up and complaining about their job and complaining about having to go to work. But
Mm-hmm.
that just shapes you, right? Whether you're positive or negative, that just shapes how you live and how your life goes. And so to me, I'm a very optimistic, very positive person. So every job I've ever had, I've always given it my all, and I've not thought too much about when am I getting a promotion, when am I getting a raise, right? Not focusing too much on that, but focusing on what I'm supposed to be doing and doing it the best possible way of doing it. And that's one thing that really, really helped me. And that's what I recommend to anybody out there, not just students. Just give it your best and don't worry about what's next. It's gonna come and you'll figure out a way. You'll chart your course. That journey will happen as long as you're waking up every morning and giving it 100%.
Yeah. So as you were telling me, having a positive outlook, a positive mindset, it's gonna have a toll on your journey for the in a good way. And I really agree, no job is small. I don't think you should, off-put any jobs like, washing dishes or being a janitor at a school. So I really like that mindset.
Yeah, I think, it
Um,
helped me a lot. And I think many of the successful people that I know in my life um,
yeah.
with that, and they probably had some of the same experiences where regardless of what they were doing, they were giving it their best, giving it their 100%, and they've scaled to great heights.
Got it. So to end, thank you so much, Girish, for joining me on Innovation World Young Collaborator Podcast Series. Your insights have been incredibly valuable, and I know our listeners will take away so much from this conversation. To everyone listening, thank you for tuning in. This is the Innovation World Young Collaborator Podcast Series. This is Aparajita signing off. Until next time.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity. And if I can plug collegegenie.org, use it every day and get the guidance you need. Thank you so much for the opportunity. This was great.